So nice outside.
Oh,
Hey,
I see Ozzy.
what's up, Ozzy?
How do I unmute? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
I had my
Hey.
workout. My workout instructor is here. He's also doubles as my production partner.
Oh, very
And
cool.
I think he's trying to get my studio by killing me. I think that's what's going on.
Okay.
How are you, Zion, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to talk to you. Good to see you finally.
Yeah, you too as well, man. So I was hoping that I could figure out like how to share my screen / productions with you so I can like let you in on some things that I'm working on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's figure out real quick. Aaron, did you have a question though that you're asking?
I was actually going to ask you. You mentioned how you want to have everything like uploaded to Spotify and all that stuff before you submit it, or at least around the same time.
Yeah.
Is that what you basically do with everything like that you want to do for sync? Is you put the single out there and
Yeah. So I don't always get that chance because sometimes a pitch comes in and I've got a song so close to being done, I need to just throw it together. And so I'll work either to mix it myself and just do a pseudo mastering job to it, or I will I've got a mixing engineer over in New York City that is really good about just getting on stuff real quick if I need him to. He understands the kind of business the sync world is about, and so he'll mix something down for me real quick. And so I'll put it up on, get it pretty good, put all the metadata in it, put it up on box.com and have it available so that I can at least get in for the sync, the pitch. I want to be able to get in the pitch, even though it's not in all the stores. It hasn't been distributed. That's not ideal for me, but realistically, I would rather land a really good sync placement and have that opportunity than to get 30 more subscribers on Spotify. That doesn't really matter that much.
yeah.
Depends on your goal.
Okay.
Some people are really trying to build a fan base in YouTube and iTunes and Spotify. That's more important to them, and to me that's secondary.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. All right, Ozzy, let's do it, man.
Yeah, man. First of all, I really appreciate you, Zion, man. This is really cool that you have this. I love your sound, man. You just got like a nice, clean, crisp sound that you do.
Oh, thank you.
You mentioned that you have, is it a mix or a mastering engineer that's in New York that you deal with?
So depends on what I can afford at the time, but I am a big proponent of having your stuff mixed by somebody else. Now, I really teach in this class to try to mix as you go. Yep. So that because your mix is going to influence what instruments you put in. Right. You may end up saying, you know what, this is kind of a darker mix. I'm going to stick to sort of instruments that have sort of a mellow, a warm sound. And right. You thought of that if you hadn't been mixing it while you were producing. So so some people think of you produce the thing and then you go to mixing and then you go to mastering. And my idea is that mixing and producing are very intertwined.
Right.
And then what I'll do is after I get it to a point where I get it as best as I can, then I render everything down into WAV files. And depending on which tracks, like sometimes I'll render the guitar out, panned a little bit to the left with the little reverb on it that I like, because I've already gotten married to that reverb, that I've gotten married to its placement in the mix.
Sure.
But sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll render it out just in mono or right down the center and take off all the effects and any kind of compression and let my mixing engineer, I send him all the files and I'll let him put his flavors on it. Does that make sense? But it's just, yeah, when I first started doing this, my first mixing engineer I ever worked with is a guy named Dylan Dresdo over in LA, he's the mixing engineer for will.i.am and the Black Eyed Peas and David Guetta and a lot of hip hop and rap and stuff. And he's phenomenal beast of a mixing engineer. he was one of the Dave Pensato's students. Do you know who Dave Pensato is?
That name sounds familiar. Yeah.
He's a big mixing guru. He's kind of mixed everybody over in LA. So,
Yeah.
and I paid like $1,500 for one song to get mixed.
Wow.
This is my very first time.
Right.
And I realized really quickly after that, one, I couldn't afford it to keep doing that. That was stupid.
Right.
And two, you can only polish a turd so much. My production was not that great. I thought it was at the time, but it's ridiculous to pay a huge amount of money on a song that is produced by somebody, at my level. Now I've gotten a lot better since I did that, but even now it would be rare for me. I just don't find it necessary to have a monster mixing engineer and pay a huge amount of money. You can get a really great mixing engineer. The guy that I use is a teacher at a music school over in New York City.
Yeah.
And he does it all in the box. He doesn't use a console, which at first I was like, whoa, I don't know about that. I want you to be in a big studio. I want you to have a giant SSL console with 40 channels or whatever.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that, and he mixes in the box, but he has such a tasty ears. It's all about your ears, man.
Yeah.
As you know.
So all the stuff that you have that I heard on your page, was that mostly done you first and then another guy second?
Yeah. On which page are you talking about? On the Triple Threat Artist page, where the examples on there?
No, I think it was your actual artist page that you have.
Oh, the fan fiction one?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So all of those it's my buddy, Philip Nichols, his name is. He just got married, so his last name changed to Nichols Wright, which is infuriating to me. But
that's weird. Okay. All right. Yeah. Whatever floats her boat, man.
Well, whatever floats your boat. But man, you're established as an artist. Nobody can look you up now. You're going to have a different name. Anyway, it's not my place to say it. But he is so cool. If you ever need a mixing engineer, he's one of the easiest guys to work with. Super easy to work with, and he charges me about $150 a song to mix, which for his level of quality.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Here's what I have two things right now that I would love to learn that I think that I do poorly. Right. So background vocals is a bitch for me. Like when I say that, it's something that I'm trying to learn more. And I don't know how old you are, but I'm 46. So I've got quite a wide. What's that?
I'll be 40 this year. Yeah.
I've got a wide range. Okay, gotcha. So I've got a wide range of the old school. I came from an analog background, so I'm very old school in the way that my ears are when it comes to like background vocals. I'm still used to like Gladys Knight and the Pips type of stuff when it comes to like background vocals and things like that, right? So I'm old school, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've got a wide range of like arranging knowledge and stuff like that, but I don't have the new sound, that new way of doing it for pop music type of sound, especially like that Justin Bieber style mixed with Chris Brown, Rihanna, right? All that new urban / pop type of sound. I don't think that I have that well enough just yet. So I'm interested in, from a production standpoint, how are you guys recording that kind of stuff? Yeah. And then what's the trick to mixing it, to making it sound as blended, but then also as fresh as it does when it comes to the technique. So that's the one thing that I feel like I'm missing. And then from a mixing perspective, I have a proposal for you, because I think I want to get better. I have a studio, so I actually do charge for mixes as well too. And I get a lot of people to say that they love what I do.
Awesome. Very cool.
I always want to be better at it, right?
Yeah.
I always want to be. So I think that it would be really cool if we could have a session where we pick a song, whether that's your song or someone else's song, and all of us just mix it, and then you critique on what you hear.
That's pretty cool idea. Right? Yeah.
Right? Because we're all trying to learn production from you, right? So let's take a song that you think is a good song as a good structured song to work on, where it has the gamut of stuff that we need to learn.
Okay.
And then from there, pick it apart and, you know, say, okay, this time we want to, if you want to concentrate on a thing, then say, okay, I want you to learn how to mix the vocal, or I want you to learn how to mix the guitar. Pick a thing in that one song. Maybe we just have one song that we always work on. And then for, you know, one session, it's learning how to do the vocal. And that second section, whatever, right? I mean, I usually just mix it all at the same time. But the point is that, you know, it would be good to get your take on how we're doing as a, you know, when it comes to just learning how to make that song sound as good as it possibly can with the tools that we're using.
I think it's a great idea.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea.
Okay.
Let me put my head to that.
Yeah, and then
it could be so simple too. It could have like four tracks, you know, percussion, a guitar, a vocal, and a piano or something. And it could be short. It doesn't even have to be long. I think it's a great idea.
Nope. It could be like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then that way we all get our teeth wet on some of the tricks and tips that everyone's using on how do they get that sound. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. So
absolutely.
I think it could be a kind of a cool lesson. And you can actually find a new mix engineer out of the whole entire thing.
I know it. I know it. I see where you're going with this. That's awesome.
No. I'm not saying it has to be me. Not at all.
Well, no, I always love working with new people too. So go ahead. We have
man, absolutely. So I think that. Cool. Yeah. So I think it would be neat. Like right now, I'm working on this guy's track that came into the studio, and he did some background vocal. Well, first of all, he's not a singer. He's more of like a rapper kind of a style, but he's got this fresh flavor to him. You know, it's like it's a neat little thing that he's got going on. And the song, like he arranged the song out of, this is, you're gonna love this. He basically pulled together a bunch of samples and he put it in the GarageBand and he just started going with and just chopping up the sample. Like he did a lot of work, just chopping up the sample and, you know, doing all this stuff to it, adding some original instrumentation to it. And he just found samples from all over the place that he wanted to put in. And I was like, first of all, very clever in how he did that.
Yeah.
He was able to he doesn't know anything about it. And then, so he came to me and he was like, I like what I did. The original version was cool, but it needs a whole fresher mix. So I was able to go in and, you know, remix the song for him. You know, it's all the same stuff, but I just, you know, basically balanced it a lot better, made certain things stand out, gave it more space, gave it more volume, that whole entire thing. You know, just kind of blended all the tracks together. I think he's got, I'm sitting here looking at it right now, in fact, and he's got like 30 tracks in here into his instrumental, you know, that he did.
Yeah.
And so it's cool. So, I mean, I came up with a pretty nice little balance and a blend to it. First of all, I'd love to get your opinion to see what you think of how
send it over. I'd love to hear it.
Mixed. Yeah. So I'll do that. I'll send you like the before and the after snapshot of what it sounded like before I got in and then what it sounds like now. Tell me this. So one of the things that he wanted in there was he wanted that nice boomy, warm type of bass sound on like just a couple of the hits. So it's like that boom, 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 and then he wants this boom, on just like the one, like that, right? So
sure.
I wanted that. So what I ended up with, I just put like I put a Moog bass down low underneath it, gave it some oomph with like a Pultec EQ, and it just kind of rumbles a little bit.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
So I just added like one little thing, and it gave him what he was looking for. I think he said he loved it. So that's, you know, that's really all that matters.
Have you ever done a bass dive where it's like?
How do you do that? What's your structure for that?
Got a whole video on it in the class.
All right, I'll take a look.
Yep.
I'll take a look.
Take a look at it. It's fun. I've got 3 different ways. I think it's in that video. I do it. I mean, you can always just, like, I love taking a synth bass, like a monophonic synth bass, and just finding the note you want and then pitching it. Just,
that's right.
You know.
Right.
And then you usually have to use like a filter that's automated, so you can put that into it, kind of to like a reverse sweep kind of thing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of skin that cat.
Yeah, I've got like I got a ton of contact samples that have a lot of stuff in there too. So I've got like a whole like library of like the cinematic types of sounds as well too. So I have and then I've got samples for days, dude. It's like freaking ridiculous. And tell me this: how do you organize? Like I've probably got roughly around 200,000 samples. It's ridiculous. I have so much stuff. It's just ridiculous.
Are you talking about outside of software, outside of your plugins? You're talking about just folders of samples?
So both. I've got folders of samples, and I'm not even using half of them because I haven't brought the sampler just yet. I've got a lot of them into my sampler, which is great. But then I also have a bunch of like synths, like Kontakt synths, for example. My Kontakt library, I have like ones that are in Kontakt, but then I've got those ones that you go to files and then you bring those in. And I probably like have 40 of those synths.
Yeah.
And
I got a lot of them too.
Yeah. How in the world do you know where they all are? How do you figure that out?
I actually made a spreadsheet one time and I was like, okay, here are all the basses I have. Here are all the synths. Here are all the horns here, because I'd forget and I'd be like looking for something, go, I know that I have some sleigh bells somewhere, but I can't, I can't find them, you know? So yeah, no, it is. If you ever figure that a great way to do it. One time I decided I was restaging my computer and I thought, well, I'm going to put all my software and installs in one little area, instead of just where they default to, like when you load them in. Well, I started doing that and it screwed up. So much mapping was screwed up. And so I had to restage the computer again. And I just decided to let every software just do whatever it wanted to do. You know, if you load Omnisphere or Kontakt or Native Instruments or whatever, let them install it wherever they're going to do it. And even if it makes no sense to you, it will work better.
So back in the day, and I'm dating myself again, but back in the day, we used to have like a bunch of keyboards because we didn't have all this soft synth stuff back in the day, right? So at one point, you would have like 5 to 10 or 15 different keyboards around you. And all of those keyboards, like you have your M1, your D50s, your Yamaha DX7, you'd have your whatever, right? You'd have all these different synthesizers surrounding you, kind of like a Brian Eno kind of a thing, you know what I mean? And then what they came up with was a library software that you would go to your library software and you'd say, I want this particular sound, this particular patch. And you'd have the controller there, but it would actually be controlling your DX7 over here. It would automatically bring up that sound on your DX7. And then your DX7 would be playing as you're playing your controller for that particular sound. Does that exist anywhere anymore? That's gone, isn't it?
You're talking about hardware synths, right?
So hardware synths. For all the hardware synths, they had this thing called it was basically a library mapper, manager, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, yeah.
I think that Motu used to make that. Mark of the Unicorn. Remember that company?
I don't remember that.
See, I'm dating myself like crazy now. He's like, how fucking old are you? Well, yes, that's what they used to have. Like Mark of the Unicorn had this like library mapper thing that you could buy extra, separate, and then it would just take all of your synths. It would load up whatever sounds was in there, and then you'd have it all in one spot. And then you could say, I'm looking for this, and it would actually help you organize it in a way. That doesn't exist anymore, does it?
Well, it might, but you know, some of the old school guys still do that kind of stuff. If you ever been to NAMM? Yeah. So you'll find people that do stuff like that. They'll even have analog synths with switchboards and stuff, and they're kind of hardcore purists. Right. And I don't get much into that anymore. I'm a big sorry, I'm cutting you out there. Say it again.
I said, I'm all in the box too. So I totally get it. Yeah. At this
point. I just think at this point, I was upgrading my Zoom account because it was going to cancel less than 10 minutes. You get a free account when you first start and it's like, okay, it's time to upgrade. I'm tired of being cut off after 40 minutes. So yeah, I don't use anything external. I originated when I first started production. I had a Roland. It was basically a Roland synthesizers, but it was all in a little box, like a what do you call it? A rack mounted synth box, and you could dial it in, and you'd have to go in the little buttons, and they had a tiny little LED screen. You'd have to scroll the little screen and boop, 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 and you change like the ADSR on some little stupid synth. It was horrible.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
awful. But at the time, I mean, again, that's all I knew. And then they came out with a GUI that would control that, and you could hook a USB cable to it. And then that was just stupid. So once I discovered Omnisphere, that was my first big synth. Are you an Omnisphere user?
No, but are you talking about this thing right here? Can you see it? I don't know if you can see it very well. It's a
Yamaha?
yeah. This one's the Yamaha one, I think. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't have Omnisphere. I've been told to get it many times, but that's just another $500 investment that I'm not ready to make just yet.
If you don't need it, don't get it. But it is, I mean, it's one of those things that when people are first starting out and they want some great sounds, I'm like, dude, Omnisphere all the way. It is monstrous. It is such a huge, huge library. In fact, what was really cool is I started getting to know the owners of Omnisphere. I'm friends with them, and one of the guys that markets Omnisphere at NAMM, he called me one day. This was about 4 years ago, and he's like, "Hey, do you have a song that I could use to like feature Omnisphere?" So they ended up using a song that I created for Omnisphere in the NAMM booth all weekend. They played it in loop, and it was amazing to see my song, that my production in their booth being used to demo Omnisphere. It was really cool.
That's badass.
Yeah, it was really cool. So, but that's a great synthesizer for lots of pianos. But all their stuff is very ethereal. It's very big and ethereal. In fact, a lot of times, because I started helping make some of their patch databases for Omnisphere. I was like an editor for a while, and I kept telling them, listen, you guys are making stuff. It sounds amazing by itself when you're playing this incredible keyboard patch with tons of low end and sweeps and all kinds of stuff. But it's like an orchestra in one sound. I'm never going to use that unless I just loved that sound. But when you're trying to put that in a mix, that does not mix well, man. It takes over every frequency spectrum.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, but it sounds so pretty. Yeah, it does by itself, but
you can't put it to it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a lot of the synths I like are dry and gritty, and it's just like, I mean, if you took a spectrum on it, it's like this in the spectrum, and it's moving around, and it's not covering every harmonic ever made. But and I think they have changed a little bit, but it's made by some guys that are old school guys. Eric, what's his last name? Somebody, but. So anyway, that's a great one to, I think, start off, just because the GUI is so amazing to be able to adjust envelopes and LFOs and ADSR, and just to really dive in and see oscillators and what they're doing. I really like that. I'm a very visual person too.
Cool, right on. Yeah.
But if you go over to something like if you're really into EDM music, you've got to be using either Massive or Silent. Those are like I think there's a couple others now, but
Theorem. You're another great one.
Which one?
Theorem. Are you using
Theorem? Yeah, I've never used it. Mm-mm.
That's a badass synth, man. I've used that for a while as well too. So I've got all of those. Only one I don't have the Omnisphere, but I've got every damn thing else. So
you're probably beyond that. And in fact, I think Omnisphere is definitely much better for things like, I don't know. It's a huge catch-all, kind of like Kontakt, but I think it's better than Kontakt as far as quality of sounds and there's a lot of cool patches that mix organic sounds with synthesizer sounds. Like literally, they went into a cave and started tapping on stalactites and stuff and captured those sounds in a cave and made patches with it. There's a whole cave, so they're really experimental. Tons of great pads. Whenever I need a pad, or just kind of background sort of analog string stuff, I always go to Omnisphere for stuff like that.
Now your productions are a lot simpler than that, seemingly. Your productions are so, it's just there. It's like I can't describe it. Like your stuff is like it's like it's simple, and you're thinking, well, damn, I could do that, and yet I can't. It's like,
Oh,
well,
thank you.
I could do that, but I don't somehow, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, we got to talk more about like how you're doing your stuff. But
Sure.
I still want to get to obviously some of the things that I feel like I'm missing, like, and that's background vocals. So
Okay, let's talk
do you
about
do a lot
that.
of background vocals at all? Do you do a lot of
So
that stuff?
let me tell you real quick, just to touch base on what you just said. I mean, that is such a huge compliment. Thank you very much, Ozzy. But if you go to the Triple Threat Artist page and you go to the About at the top,
Yeah.
it has a little bio of me, and there's a bunch of samples of other stuff I've done that aren't in that genre. So you might want to check that out. I'm not saying they're amazing. There's some of them are okay, but it gives you kind of I did a lot of cinematic stuff for a while, and I did a lot of EDM stuff for a while. So if you want to see my head space in that, you can see that there. But anyway, the stuff I'm doing now is much more folksy, sort of folk and pop folk is the stuff that I love right now. I feel like it's more me, more authentically me. When I was doing EDM music, I even started playing as a DJ and doing this on stage stuff, and I felt like I was posing. It wasn't me at all, and I just didn't like it. And anyway, the girl that I work with, she's this cute little diva here in town, and she's doing really well, and she's starting to make a name for herself. And we had a lot of fun together writing, and I was producing her for a while, but I just kind of got out of that. And she was kind of going a different creative direction anyway. She wanted to become more rock and sort of Marilyn Manson-ish, which was weird. But I think so much, so much is coming back to what is authentically you, because you're going to be at your best. You're going to sound authentic when you are authentic, right?
Right. Yeah, very true.
So,
very true.
So let's talk about background vocals.
Yeah, so I my style of doing background vocals is, all right, so let's talk about how I record them, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So when I record background vocals, I will tend to probably use, depending, but I try to use like 3 mics to record them. Okay.
Wow.
So I use 3 mics, 3 different preamps, 3 different colors. I record by color, right? So I record, like even if you're doing like a lead vocal or whatever, it doesn't matter. I listen to the song. I listen to the way that your voice goes into the song. Is it sibilancy when you're singing? What's the color that's coming out of your? Are you throaty? Are you whatever? And then I will pick a microphone based off of that, right?
Wow. What mics are you picking from?
I've got 70 different ones. So I've got. Yeah, I know. So I've got a wide variety of microphones. I've got like, a lot of tube microphones. I've got a ton of ribbon microphones. I've got a lot of condensers, like U87 styles and 414s, and like I have all that stuff as well. And
Nice.
then and I have some dynamics as well. So I've got all the 4 different types? Yeah, 4 different types of microphones. And if you have an instrument, then I can like for my violin, whenever I play that, I'll use a piezoelectric.
You play the violin?
I do. Yes.
Oh
so
gosh.
yeah. So I'll put a piezoelectric on that. Plus I will mic it as well, depending on what I'm looking for. Right.
Okay. Cool.
So it all depends, and I've got like 10 different preamp choices to use as well too. So one microphone can then have a different color based off of the preamp as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So I will typically record my background vocals with 3 different mics, and then I'll do 3 different takes so that I can choose between the different takes, and each one gets a different take off of that. So that might makes it nice and thick. So I'll do that. It allows for me to, really quickly get, instead of having a vocalist sing 3 different times in the 3 different microphones, I just have them sing once, and then I have them do it 3 different times, and then I layer those basically at that point. And then I'll do that. And then if there's harmony to it as well, then I'll also have him do a harmony part in the exact same way. So if he's doing like, I'll just have him do a third above that. Okay. So I'll do that. And then from there, depending on the song. So if it's a pop song, then I'll try and like build the background vocal. So, I'll cut out pieces of the background vocal, bring it in, then cut it back out again, and then bring it all back in, and then I'll layer that, and then I'll sometimes put a harmonizer, make another track, put a harmonizer on that, and then layer it again, that kind of a thing. So I do that, and then I have different harmonizers that I can use as well based off of that. And it's okay. It's not bad. It works, right? But I feel like really modern production now is simpler than that. That's like that's going back to an old school way of doing it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, what's his name, Quincy Jones, right? All Babyface, all these guys did that technique where they would have multiple takes and layer like nine. You'd have 9 different vocal takes of a background. They would layer it all and just give you this fat wall of background vocal that's like nice and creamy and smooth. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that anymore. It's not that way. Now you're gonna tell me, oh, dude, man, I just put a freaking Rode microphone up in front of the guy and say, sing something, and then I do something really simple and it's done. I'm done. 5 minutes. So go ahead.
Well, okay. All right. So first of all, you obviously have a lot of experience, which is amazing. You're much more advanced than I think most people in the class. Wouldn't you say, Aaron? Yeah. So, and I'm just not to put anybody down. It's just you have a lot of experience, so that you're already way ahead of most people in this class. So you're maybe looking for a few things that you may be on a level of asking questions that I may not be able to provide for you. But I can tell you what I do if that's what you want.
Because you're doing something that I find valuable. So hit it, man. Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. So I have, maybe it's been a good thing, but I have been restricted to very little equipment because of just money and my resources and stuff like that. And actually back when I had a lot more money and I had an engineering job, I was telling Aaron about this right before you came on. I had a different job for a long time and it paid really well. And I was able to buy whatever I wanted for my studio habits. And, but I never really explored a lot of mics. And part of that was probably a little laziness. Part of that was just I didn't know what I was doing. But I started with a condenser, like a Rode. I can't even remember what it's called, a Rode something. It's one of these $300 or $400 mics.
NT1 or NT1K or something like that.
Yeah, one of those. Yep. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And it was really bright, but I didn't know that at the time. I just was recording with it.
Right.
Well, after a while, I ended up making friends with a guy here in Scottsdale that is he's a really cool guy. He's the live engineer for, he's been around forever. He used to live engineer Van Halen, Rush, Matchbox 20, and he was doing Tom Petty when I met him. He was right up till Tom Petty died. They were really good friends. Anyway, I just totally a God thing. I was able to meet this guy and I worked for him for a little bit and helped or just volunteered for him. He was setting up stuff at churches and stuff. And he started giving me some tips about this. And he was really big on several things. One was acoustic treatments of your room. He's like, I don't know why all these people are trying to create music in their home. And the one thing that they need the most, they're not doing, which is paying attention to, the reflections in your room and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so important because your ears can't really grow and get better without that. So that was a huge thing. But anyway, I'm getting off track. He loaned me some equipment. He loaned me a real, it was a Tube Tech preamp.
Yeah, man, those are beautiful. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a 1073, I think is what it's called. And then an 1176, one of the old amazing 1176 compressors, tube compressors. From Universal. Yeah, and this is the real stuff. And then he loaned me an AKG 414 as well to use with that with its own little preamp. And anyway, we hooked it up. I was working with a co-writer at the time, and we just started tweaking knobs and figuring things out and just trying things and go, okay, this sounds a little bit better than that. This sounds a little bit better than that. And eventually we got it to a place where it sounded pretty good to us. So I started recording and realizing how different it sounded from my little Rode microphone with a windscreen. That's all I had before.
Yep.
I wasn't even using a preamp. I was just using my interface as a preamp. And I started really going, holy cow, it makes such a difference to have, but we never dialed in. We never said, okay, this voice would be better with this mic or this preamp or whatever. I'm not saying that that's not important. I just never learned that aspect of it. I never had enough equipment to really try. I had 2 or 3 microphones. I think I had 3 total. And I've tried an SM57, and I've tried, I have a Sennheiser 421 now that I use for my dynamic mic. All the videos are recorded on a Sennheiser 421. And then those are great for like toms. They're supposed to be real good for trumpets and toms and stuff, but I like it when I'm talking into it. I just feel like it's a real good talkie mic. Yeah. But have I measured it? Have I done a shootout against all these other mics? I haven't done it. And I will probably one day have you say, dude, stop using that mic and use this mic because it would sound so much better. But I just don't know.
So to me, that doesn't really matter. I just happen to be, I've been around enough engineers to know that kind of stuff can matter. Gotcha. and because like Andrew Schweppes, for example, or Joe Ciccarelli or whatever, these are like, major top engineers. Oh, yeah. They're doing amazing stuff. And those guys are like, you'll just say, you know what, if the microphone isn't working in the scenario, they'll just change the microphone as opposed to for EQ, right? Yeah. So I agree with that to a certain level, right? I don't just change it because these guys have hundreds of mics, you know what I mean? Right.
And they have techs that are running around doing it for them, and they don't have to get off their butts.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. So that's not really what matters. Like me and my assistant, we did a shootout with like just some standard, like, tools. Cause I have a ton of different tools, like Universal Audio stuff and a bunch of other stuff. And right. Everyone always thinks that you need to have all this amazing gear in order to do what you're looking for. And all that really matters is that you have good ears, and whatever tool it is that you're using, that change it to actually make it do what you're looking for. That's pretty much it. If you only have one microphone, sure, that might be a spitty microphone, but you know how to change the EQ to EQ it first so that it's not a spitty microphone anymore for that particular session, right? So it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, I just happen to know that if I do have a spitty microphone, instead of me trying to add all this other processing to it ahead of time, I just go get another microphone. I just, because I can do that, right? But if you don't have that, who cares? You can just take whatever is there. And if you have stock compressors in your DAW or whatever it is, you just happen to know how to use that stock compressor in your DAW to get the sound that you're looking for. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we're doing that all the time. Like I'll get a 14-day trial of a compressor or something like that. I'll listen to it and I'm like, oh, wow, I can do that same kind of thing with this other compressor that I had over here, or with a stock compressor, and I just make a preset for it and just go done.
Right.
You know what I mean? So then I don't buy that plugin.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't really matter. The tools that you have doesn't matter. It's just simply a matter, do you have great ears?
Right. And I think, absolutely. I really believe that. So my big thing is, when it comes to vocals, is because I haven't concerned myself with some of those things, my concern has mainly been on performance, and then the production of the vocal after it's been recorded. So I don't get me wrong. I believe that the source is, the quality of your capturing is so important. Just the power of a good preamp is incredible. I'm using now the UA Apollo Twin, and beautiful. I got those emulators in it that emulate. I'm using ATG. No, it's a console preamp emulator. I can't remember the name of it. It's not an SSL. It's AK something. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I most certainly do. Yeah. You're talking about the API.
Yeah. So I use that preamp, and then I run it through and this is just a software emulator of 1176, the legacy one, the one that I got used to, the physical one that I got used to, which has weird knobs, by the way. It doesn't have a threshold. It has an input-output, and you've got to adjust that to create the threshold. It's weird. Anyway, but I use that, and it thickens the voice in a way that I didn't even identify. I couldn't even hear that at first. I was like, I don't notice any difference in this. But
You're right.
but eventually your ears start to hear it, and you go, you can tell when a good compressor is put on something and adjusted correctly, because it brings the voice forward in a way that you can't do it just with automation. And it also creates a thickness, and oftentimes will color the voice. And you know this, it'll kind of create some harmonics in the voice that makes the whole thing sound fatter and thicker, and it sounds awesome. So I'm starting to run,
Yep.
Suddenly I'm like, oh hell, why don't I run my ukulele through that next time? Why don't I run so sometimes I do. I'll pass it out and pass it back in, going through that interface, because everything's in the interface, and capture that colorization. So one is, I've learned some tools like that. When it comes to, you're going to hate this, but well, maybe you won't. When it comes to making vocals sound really good, I put a lot
Hey guys,
of
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I have to go. But
Oh, no worries.
this is awesome. I
Okay,
can't
man.
wait to listen to it.
Thanks.
All right.
Good to see
you
you.
guys.
Very good to see you.
Later, man.
Yep.
So when it comes to actually producing the voice, I put a huge amount of attention into the timing and the tuning of the vocal. And I am really, really big on all I'm doing is I'm trying to remove anything in the vocals that makes them sound amateurish. So if that's a timing issue, I'm not trying to line things up to the grid. I don't care what the grid is. I'm trying to line it up to my ears saying that sounds professional and that doesn't. And that note right there, even though she performed it perfectly, for some reason it sounds flat to me. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit, and that just sounds better. So I spent a crap load of time going through and timing and tuning my vocals. I know that's a controversial subject, because a lot of people, especially old school mixers and producers, feel like that's not very authentic. But that's the way I've learned to make my stuff sound to the quality I want. And then that same thing applies to my background vocals. Sometimes I don't tune and time my background vocals because I want it to be pitchy. I want it, it gives that chorus effect. But sometimes I've had people, everybody in my group, even though the group may have been recorded at different times, all singing certain notes, the wrong note. And I'm like, shit, I've got to go in there and I've got to adjust every one of those a little bit, because everybody's saying that one note flat. And is that pure? No, it's not. It's produced. But for where I am and what I can do, I don't have time to get those people back in the studio or on a call again to record them again. I've got to work with what I have.
Yep. And you'll find out that, at least I've found anyway, that pretty much everybody does that now. In the major studios anyway, they're all, they're timing and tuning. And do you use Melodyne? What are you using to do that?
I use Melodyne Studio, yeah.
Yeah, Melodyne Studio is the bomb. Yeah, it's great.
You use that?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, of course. Yeah, you have to. You have to nowadays, right? I mean,
you can line stuff up to the other tracks, so you can gray out one of them and see those timings. I made several videos for a class about this, because to me this has been so important. I learned this from Justin Bieber's vocal engineer. He's a friend of mine, and I started asking him. I asked him as many questions as he would answer. Eventually, he said, "Listen, I can't give you all my secrets, because this is." He's one of those guys that tries to hold all this information, but I got enough out of him to know how important timing and tuning are. And now he's working with, he'll work with producers that send him tracks that are impeccably recorded. So he's starting with incredible sources, which makes his job amazing. And plus, Bieber has an amazing voice anyway, and I think he does Katy Perry's voices and several other big artists, and they're already pro voices. They're going to be pretty pitch perfect, so he's not having to do a lot on that end. He's just creating these, like you were saying, a spread. He's creating this vibe, this sort of that pop sound, that pop background vocal sound.
Right, exactly. So now I think that from my perspective, it's more of a matter of arrangement. I need to learn better on how to arrange those pop background vocals. Because I mean, I think that I'm not necessarily recording them any different than anyone else is recording them. But there may be some choices that they use in post processing. You know, whether that be a certain way that they're compressing them, whether that be that they're putting certain different kinds of filters in on them or whatever. Tricks, right? I call those things
Sure.
tricks.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so there may be some things that they're doing in that regard. I mean, it depends. Like if I have to tune them, then I will. But most of the time for background vocals, I don't tune them. I like them as well to be untuned. I'll
Right.
tune the lead vocal, of course, and then I record with processing. And then I'll put processing on afterwards. So I put a 3-to-1 compression whenever I'm recording, because I want that to actually have a nice even tone going in.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, you want to
and
control the
then if
clipping too.
right,
You don't want
exactly.
anything
So I
clipping.
might, yeah, exactly. So I'll fatten up the vocal going down, and it sounds pretty much done by the time it's actually recorded, which is great. And then whatever you do afterwards is great. Junk in, junk out. So if you don't record it well, then you're gonna get junk out as well too,
Right.
right?
Here's
So yeah. Go ahead.
finish your thought, and I've got something else you reminded me of.
Yeah, so I mean, I will typically for background vocals do that. I'll record them, three takes of it, and then I'll mix between those takes, give it a nice, shine to it, spread it a little bit with some different imagers and stuff like that I'll use, delays, whatever, that kind of a thing. Give it a nice spread, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that's what's
Mhm.
driving me nuts. I'm like, what the hell am I doing wrong with my background vocal? So,
One of the things I was going to say is, and I kind of learned this the hard way, is oftentimes more is not better. When you feel the frequency that you're designating for the vocals with too much vocals, it actually sounds sort of like a brick wall after a while. It's like there's not a richness in it. In fact, I'm working on a song right now, and I worked really hard on recording all these different takes, and I'm listening to it back going, I actually don't like this. It's perfect, but I don't like it. And when I take off several of the takes and I just have my lead singer with one harmony and one layer, so just two backgrounds with his lead vocal, it gives space to where you can hear those and it blends better. Because too many of them, even though they were timed and tuned a little bit and they were really nice, and it actually I can't even explain the science of this, but you lose something in that. Does that make sense?
yeah. So too much. Yeah, I totally know what you're saying. So you can oversaturate the harmonic balance of the song, right? And it's just not balanced anymore.
It's not balanced, but also you've got so many frequencies that you're playing with right now, and vocals are, let's say, only this many frequencies that they're singing within, and all their harmonics and stuff. So if you fill that up, just like, have you ever heard an electronic, like an EDM type song, and they're using so many synthesizers, it just sounds like white noise coming at you?
Right. It's just too
There's
much
no,
noise. Yeah,
there's no definition in it anymore. And
yeah.
it's that space between frequencies that aren't being excited that actually cause the ear to be able to say, I can hear that voice over there, and I can hear that voice over there, and there's three, background singers over there, and there's some kids singing over there, and you can actually, when your ears can pick up what you're hearing, it's so much more magical in a listening environment, in my opinion, than that's just a ton of people singing and I don't know where it's coming from. So I'm a big
True. Very good point.
in less is oftentimes more. But we tend to fill everything. We just guitar, piano, drums, and it's like, dude, give it some space, man.
But that's an old school production technique. So I mean, like Quincy Jones, for example, right? And if you go back and you listen to like all of the production that he did back in the day with, even like something as simple as like Sanford and Son, theme song for Sanford and Son, right? There's like all these little instruments going on in there that filled up the sound, right? And now in today's world, we have all these delays and preprocessors that handle, and reflections of
Yeah.
things that handle that extra space that you're trying to fill.
Right.
That
Exactly.
you need. You can basically make something sound really full with 3 instruments nowadays.
You can.
You know? So it's totally way different of a production technique that goes on now. And I don't know about you, but one producer actually taught me a long time ago when I was getting back into all this music stuff. He taught me that in today's world, you don't need to do all of that filling up of the space, which I
Right.
still sometimes do.
We all do. You know, I think you go through a period of time as you're learning producing where you it's very simple, and then suddenly it becomes extremely complicated, and then you got to get back to coming back to simple, and it's hard to go back because you start realizing, well, I've got skills, I know how to throw those bongos in. Yeah, but do you need bongos?
That's it right there in a nutshell. Right on, exactly. So it's like, you don't need to fill up all those different spaces. I mean, if you go back and you listen to like Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation album, I don't know if you like Janet Jackson, but if you go back and you listen to,
I don't know the album though, but
yeah, like her, you know, that Rhythm Nation album, and you go back and you listen to like something as simple as like the song called The Knowledge, which, I mean, I love Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who wrote all of that stuff for her and all that. And like there's so much stuff going on, and everything has its own little aural space in the mix. And you have to listen to that going on like over here, nice and quiet. And you'll hear that, and you'll hear something different in that song every time that you listen to it. That's gone. That style of production is like now gone. I'm so sad because that was cool, man.
It is. There is some of that back, you know, like some of Bruno Mars's stuff. I think he has that kind of old school way of producing. I mean, he's trying to go after that old school sound. I like his vibe. But no, I know what you mean. I think if you're able to make a song just amazing using just a few instruments, you're onto something. I really think so. Less is so much more. One of the songs I'm working on right now, I have 3 guitars in it, and I was listening to it going, why did I think I need, it sounds so creamy that it's not creamy anymore. I don't know. It's like using that word creamy. It's just, it's filling out all the guitar frequencies so well that it's not interesting. I want to hear that one strummer because that's more tasty. There's something tasty about that.
Very interesting, man. Taught me something. Great. That's great. That's really cool.
So
I definitely dig that.
So background vocals, honestly, I think you know what you're doing. I would just say playing around with when you record background vocals, are you recording a group of people together or just separately and then putting them all together?
So typically, and maybe this has changed since then, but back in the day, like, you know, people used to harmonize better with themselves. So I will typically just let the lead singer harmonize with themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just one person. Now I am recording a choir coming up for two tracks that I wrote coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I have a choir that's coming in. I've got about 6 to 10 people that are going to be coming in for that choir sound.
Cool.
I'm looking for. So that's
good.
You
got to live stream that shit.
Yeah. So the way that I record choirs is fun because what I typically will do is I will do a Bloomline pair for. So I'll record in a Bloomline pattern. Are you familiar with that pattern for recording? So you take two figure 8 microphones, okay, and you have them up on top of each other like this. So and then you get one facing one way, and then the other facing this way.
Okay.
And so that's how you get a surround sound.
Oh, the sort of omnispheric or omnidirectional.
Yeah. So putting that in the center, putting the choir around that is an awesome way to record.
Oh, wow.
Really cool way. I just gave away a secret. Hot damn! Look at
that. I'll probably never do that though. I'm not really a recording engineering is not really my forte. But anyway, I love this though.
It's like a thing that I've for this particular one because I think I might want even an even thicker type of sound. I'm going to play around, and I might end up doing like 2 bloom line pairs just to see what I get out of that. You know what I mean? Just to see if I get, an even thicker, bigger sound out of a small group.
Sure.
And then I'm going to have them sing the parts I'm going to have them do all the parts in unison, and then they'll do the harmonies all in unison as well, and then I'll blend them all later, so it'll sound like I have like 100 people singing by the time it's all said and done.
Cool.
That's awesome. That's going to be a lot of fun to see.
The only thing about that,
and then the great thing about that is,
sorry. Well, I was going to say the only thing about that is is in phrasing, when people are harmonizing, if they can hear the melody. I was thinking you might want to have half the group doing the melody and half the group doing the harmony on both takes, so that they're blending better, because they're auto blending. They're listening to the melody and phrasing to as close as they can on the fly. And sometimes you don't. But whatever you want to do, I'm just wondering.
I would put down the just so they can hear themselves. Sometimes it messes them up though, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it does.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you have to play that one by ear, but yeah, absolutely. So if they need to, I can always kind of blend it back into the track just a little bit so they can hear what they were doing, and then they can harmonize on top of that or whatever. So,
oh, that's cool. You've got to take some picture. You got to capture that, because that's going to be a fun day.
Yeah, that's gonna be a cool session. So that is really gonna be cool. I have to still sit and actually score it all out. So I have to arrange it all first.
Yeah.
And get all that down first, so I know what they're doing when they come in. But
that's awesome.
So, dude, man, this is fun. This is great stuff.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate the tech talk.
I wish I had a little bit more to advise you on with this, but like I always say in my class, I'm not going to bullshit anybody on anything I don't know. And I think you have more experience in capturing audio than I do in the capture of it. So I would love to listen to when you're done and want to run something by me anytime. If you want to say, hey, I'm thinking about this, do you have any thoughts on it? I might not, but if I do, I'll let you know. So
yeah, right on, man. Yeah, absolutely. So what assignments do we have in the class right now that you're giving us to work on?
So have just the exercises. So there's like 46 exercises, something like that I'm just saying 2 big things. One is listen to the lectures and do the exercises.
Yep.
And each exercise will tell you which lessons to go back and do. But again, you're going to be probably a lot more advanced than anybody else in this class. So do the ones you want. Don't feel like you got to, some of them are going to be really kind of beneath you. And that's totally cool. Just do the ones you think you can get out of.
To create a beat or something like that. I saw that one where create a rhythm or create a temp. What is it?
Groove. Yeah.
Beat. Groove. Yeah. Groove.
Yeah. So
right?
that's the other thing I was going to say is make 100 grooves. So I'm telling everybody every day or every other day or several times a week, whatever you got, make grooves, because that's where songs are going to come out of. That's where learning a new instrument, learning a new piece of software, all that's going to come out of. If you're stuck just doing one song all the time, you're going to get so stagnant. It's in making a fresh new groove, using fresh new drums, using digital drums, using analog drums, using samples, using this, using that. That's where things, as you know, that's where you start to just really learn. Yeah. And so that's my big thing is create 100 grooves in this class. So anytime you don't know what to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got a lot of them, so let's do
Awesome.
Yeah, and I definitely created one earlier this week too. So maybe I'll have to see if you want to vibe on something like that. That'd be cool. So,
that's awesome, man. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you. I'm so glad you're in this. I would love to collaborate sometime with you if you want to, if it works out. And
yeah, man, absolutely. And I think that was freaking fantastic. In the meantime, think about if we can all, share on a track
to mix it.
It could be one of yours, or it could be someone from the class or whatever, and then just mix it, and see because that's what it's all about, the production side,
Yeah.
I think that's what you mean by production. Maybe you mean something different. So
no, it's again, the line is so fuzzy between production and mixing that you mix, produce, whatever you do, everybody take the same 4 track these same stems, and let's see your interpretation of it. Maybe one person's just all about balance. Yeah. They're just trying to create really good balance. Or maybe one person's all about chopping it up and making it into a remix with a beat. Or one person's, but that would be a lot of fun, is to take different interpretations of that and just see what people do.
Right on. Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to be a part of that. So
it's awesome. I think it's a great suggestion. Thanks, man.
My man. Good talking.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You too, man. Take care.
See you now. Bye.
Bye-bye.